Hey guys, Xlice here. Suisui is finally out in Wuthering Waves and she's here to redefine the support scene while looking like an absolute baddie doing so. She's a 5-star Glacio Resonator with HP and ER scaling just like Shorekeeper and is going to be best in slot support for basically any team that is involved with negative status. This includes her sister yyxl and Havoc Bane, Hiyuki with Glacio Chafe, aemeath with Fusion Burst, and even older teams like Cart with Arrow Erosion and peeb zani with Spectro Frazzle. Now, only the newer teams will get the full bonuses from Suisui, but she's going to still be an excellent support option for all of those teams. In this complete and detailed guide, I'll explain everything you need to know about Suisui. We'll start with an example combat rotation, then I'll provide you a summary of everything useful in her kit, then go through her best builds, weapons, and echoes, her sequence nodes, best teammates, run through a proper gameplay showcase, and give you a final review on if you should bowl her. For the rest of this video, I will affectionately nickname her to Sushi. Creator server disclaimer on screen as usual, and with that, let's get into it. So, Sushi is designed to be the new Shorekeeper for negative status. Big HP pool, energy regen scaling, consistent team healing, and a large amount of attack buffs for the team. While she does benefit all negative status teams, her outro skill provides special bonuses when Resonators consume negative status, so this means Hiyuki and yyxl gain extra special buffs. With S1, this limitation is removed, but for now, we're going to focus on S0. Let's jump into a combat rotation and break down her kit. So, we're going to lead with intro skill
into the landscapes,
and then we're going to basic 4 chain until full forte, using her E skill to fill in gaps if you get interrupted. And then we're going to ult at 75% concerto energy,
mirrored by water, tinted in blue.
And then outro and a rotation is complete. It's an incredibly simple healer rotation with low on-field time. Now, at the start of combat, when she cannot lead with intro skill, we simply add the following. We're gonna basic chain until full forte, and then enhance skill to change state.
Washed in nature's palette.
Then, like before, gonna basic 4 chain until full forte, ult, and outro. In full speed, this is what both rotations look like.
Follow the stream. Only fairies. Clouds fade. Clarity remains. Ring ceases. Wind rises. Rippling splendor awakens. Mist clears. Clouds fade. Clarity remains. Ring ceases. Wind rises.
Now let's break things down step by step. So she's got 2 forms, Zephyr and Drizzle stance. Zephyr is normal mode, which is not important. Drizzle is enhanced mode, which is the one you care about. For Zephyr, we just fill the forte bar like usual, then enhance skill to get into Drizzle state. Drizzle forte is called Floral Epistle, and it can be divided into 3 mini bars, 200 each. We fill this up with basic attacks. Uninterrupted basic 4 chain in Drizzle should be enough, but if you do get interrupted or you need to dodge, just add an extra E skill for half of a mini bar. Once Drizzle Forte is filled, she can set up her ult. This will set up a 30-second domain that grants all Resonators extra benefits for negative status. For Spectro Frazzle, Fusion Burst, Glacio Chafe, Arrow Erosion, and Electro Flare or Rage, they will have their max stack increased by 3. And then for Havoc Bane, those Resonators will instead enjoy a 6% ignore defense and 12% ignore Havoc res, with no max stack increase here. Once this is set up, she can then outro, and she'll fuse with her ult domain instead of leaving the field. Depending on the number of mini bars filled, when she outros, she'll provide extra bonuses while being fused with her ult. In the outro, there's a bunch of text here. The bonuses described in this description are cumulative, so here's a summary of what each tier provides. 0 mini bars. This is basically like less than 1 or empty. Increase interruption resist for the first 6 seconds after Sushi outros. At least 200 Floral Epistle or at least 1 mini bar. This grants 1 Plume Step activation. Each Plume Step grants increased interruption resist for 6 seconds, applies 1 stack of Glacio Chafe to all enemies within the domain, and then heals all Resonators on the team. At least 2 mini bars or 400 Floral Epistle, the active Resonator will gain up to 12% damage bonus based on Sushi's ER, gains 2 plume step activations, which happen once every 6 seconds. And then if your entire forte bar is filled, which is all 3 mini bars, which is 600 for a pistol, inherits 12% damage bonus from the previous buff, and also grants each resonator up to 50% attack at the start of their own rotation. This of course scales off of Sushi's ER, and also grants 3 plume step activations. On top of all this, she does have a normal outro buff that grants a universal 25% damage amp. Okay, so that's like the important stuff of her kit. Now let's go through all of the background stuff that happens. She has 3 sources of the on-field Glacio Chafe application. The intro provides 1 stack, the enhanced skill to change form provides 1 stack, and then basic 4 in drizzle stance provides 1 stack. Each rotation, you're gonna apply 1 or 2. So the intro skill and the enhanced skill are basically like mutually exclusive. Only one of them can happen per rotation because both of them are used to get into drizzle stance. And then the second stack can happen if you do land basic 4 in drizzle. And then of course her outro skill, when she's off field, she will also apply 1 to 3 stacks from her plume steps, depending on how many you have. And then when using her intro or enhanced skill to enter drizzle state, Sushi grants all resonators a healing buff called enrichment. This will keep you topped up by restoring the active resonator's HP when they are not at max. And then finally, as a dedicated support, she also has 1 50% revive for a teammate every 10 minutes. And then if you do care, she gets a little bit of extra damage to her only HP scaling damage dealing abilities, 80% crit rate, and 240% glacio damage for her enhanced skill and her intro. So in total, these are the buffs you can expect from Sushi. 25% damage amp, 12% damage bonus, 50% attack if the resonator consumes negative status, Glacio Chafe application, 50% revive, and then top off healing. You can see that a big chunk of her kit is that 50% attack buff, which means that HP scalers like Kartathea will benefit less from her. But yeah, that basically covers her entire kit. In terms of gameplay, you're just doing intro, basic spam, ult, outro, and profit. You can use her E skill like right after the basic spam if you need to do some sort of weapon activation or just for energy. Final notes for forte priority. Her HP scaling abilities are intro for damage, skill for damage and the enrichment healing, and then lib for healing. Normal attack and forte circuit are attack scaling, so we can ignore those. Refer on screen for exact priorities. Alright, now let's take a look at her build, starting with weapons. Her signature gives 77% regen, 12% max HP, concerto energy for herself, and 20% team-wide attack. The main benefit from this is that team-wide attack. For other possible weapons, we're just looking for anything with energy regen. Shorekeeper's signature, Stellar Symphony, is basically identical to her own weapon. It just has a lower attack buff at 14% versus 20%. And then Variation is basically the 4-star version of those weapons, providing energy regen and concerto energy on skill cast, but no team-wide attack buff. And then if you have none of those 3, you can craft a temporary 4-star Call of the Abyss or Rectifier 25 for energy regen. Now, in my personal opinion, I find that the support rectifiers are fairly bland in terms of those stat increases, so if you don't mind the loss of attack, running Variation will be a perfectly comfortable option. Overall recommendations are on screen. Now onto Echoes. So the recently released 5-piece set in 3.5 will be her best in slot. The 2-piece provides 10% regen, and the 5-piece provides up to 25% team-wide attack based off of energy regen. All she needs to do is inflict Glacio Chafe. She will periodically do this no matter what team she supports, so this attack buff is on 100% uptime. Now if you run this set, make sure to use the Forbidden Bastion as your main Echo for the 10% healing bonus. Now, alternatively, you can always settle with the 5-piece Rejuvenating Glow for 10% healing bonus and team-wide 15% attack. The Turtle Echo provides 10% damage bonus to the active resonator, which is honestly better than her new set, but the 5-piece bonus is slightly weaker in comparison with no energy regen and less attack percent. Her main stats, HP or healing bonus 4 cost, double energy regen 3 cost, or ER HP mix and match, and then HP 1 cost. The only stat threshold that you care about is 260% energy regen. This will activate all bonuses in her kit. So start with a double energy regen 3 cost, and then you can eventually swap one for HP if you get enough ER substats. 4 cost is your preference. Healing bonus is for more healing, obviously. HP is for slightly more tankiness, more damage on her abilities that HP scale as well. For overall substat priority, energy regen is the only technical stat that matters. HP is the obvious second best, and then crit damage if you want slightly more damage on her 80% crit rate boosted attacks. So here's an example stat page with Media Server Echoes running healing bonus, ER, and fixed substats of HP, crit damage, and ER. She has 40k HP, 285 regen, 5 crit rate, and 213 crit damage. I would say this is a pretty healthy build range to aim for. The crit damage is obviously a little higher than normal because we do have crit damage on every single piece, which will probably not happen in the actual game. So yeah, and the energy region can be min-maxed downwards to 260%, and the HP can be min-maxed upwards to 45k. Alright, now for sequence nodes. S1. This one removes the restriction on her 50% attack buff to apply negative status instead of consuming. This enables every single negative status comp to gain its benefits. Partathea comps still don't gain too much here since she is HP scaling. And then also, the third plume step duration extension is just longer interruption resist. S2. Her old domain now provides 50% crit damage to all negative status resonators. This one's simple, but it's very good because it's the strongest supportive S2 that we have so far. S3 shortens her rotation to instantly basic 4 after her E skill in drizzle state. This basic 4 will grant a massive extra forte bar amount and concerto energy to compensate, usable once per 25 seconds. S4 is 50% increased healing. S5 is 2 times damage multipliers for her drizzle basic and heavy. These attacks are unfortunately attack scaling though, not HP, so this is basically a completely filler sequence node that has 0 value. And then S6, 500% increased crit damage to the only damaging abilities in her kit that are HP scaling. These are the same ones affected by the 80% crit rate and 240% glacio damage boost, so they will actually do decent chip damage here. So overall, pretty standard support sequence nodes. S2 is the largest breakpoint for sure, adding 50% crit damage boost to the whole team, and also gaining S1's benefit of buffing all negative status resonators, not just consumption ones from S0. S3 is the usual rotation shortener, and then S6 for chip damage. Now, for my personal recommendation, it really all comes down to, is S2 worth a team-wide 50% crit damage buff? Now, it's stronger than Mornye's or Shorekeeper's S2, who provide 32% crit damage and 40% attack respectively, so if you consider that, it's actually pretty nice. Okay, now for teams and showcases. So there are currently 6 different negative statuses: Spectro Frazzle, Fusion Burst, Arrow Erosion, Glacio Chafe, Electro Flare plus Rage, and Havoc Bane. Chisa was our original pseudo-sustain for all of those negative status teams, and she still is an excellent choice. But she is now a bit more tailored to Havoc Bane specifically in supporting yyxl. So Sushi will now be the anchor sustain for all of these teams and gets even better with more sequence nodes. So let's break down each negative status and what I would recommend. Spectro Frazzle. So this is the Zani peeb duo. This one's the oldest comp here, but it still does work. Zani inflicts 1 stack of Spectro Frazzle through helical embers, but does not consume it. This team does need S1 Sushi for full buff value though. S0 Sushi is a downgrade to existing sustains. This one still favors Shorekeeper since this team really values the crit buffing to reach decent crit ratios. Then we got Fusion Burst. This is the aemeath or denia duo. Amy does inflict Fusion Burst but does not consume, so this team will also need S1 Sushi for full buff value. S0 Sushi is a side grade to existing sustains. Arrow Erosion. This is the Partathea Chacona duo. Will only receive damage amp and damage bonus. The attack buff, regardless of if she inflicts or consumes, does not affect the team because it is HP scaling. So this is probably the worst lineup for Sushi overall, since the attack buff is her largest buff part, and it's completely useless for this team. And then Electro Flare and Rage. We don't really have anything yet, so we will see in the future. Glacio Chafe. So, hiyuki lucilla duo. This one is perfect and has full value at S0. And then finally, of course, Havoc Bane. This is yyxl and Chisa duo, full value again at S0. So the current best teams for her are the hiyuki Glacio Chafe comp and the yyxl Havoc Bane comp. S1 will provide pretty big benefits to the Amy Fusion Burst and works decent for the Zani peeb. Here are 4 showcase highlights featuring Yangyang, Hiyuki, aemeath, and Zani on their respective negative status teams. All units shown are S0R1 on their signature Echo sets. We'll play everything in full speed just so you can see how Sushi rotates in each different comp.
Rippling splendor awakens. Clouds fade. Clarity remains. Blink. Flicker into form. Nothingness. Deconstructed. Connection severed. Beaky sound. Harness from the source. Strike the wicked. Ride the wind. To the ground. All shapes dissipate. Blink Silence your sound. Purge the dissonance. Set the tone. My turn, Yang Yang. Mirrored by water, tinted in blue. Drain the foul. Right. The water meets the sky. A leaf fairies almost wrinkled my gown. Beyond lush haze, the rainfall marches. Perfect lighting. Mediocre prose. Dismissed. I witnessed all that I have. You can trust me. Too late to escape. Leave the sun. Let there be snow. Be gone. Swirl. Fading away. Follow my moves if you can. May the sakura incinerate. Burn this self away. Become the scenery. Mirrored by water, tinted in blue. Gazing at the snow. Follow the stream. Rippling splendor awakens. Mirrored by water, tinted in blue. Is it my turn? Please don't. Forgive me. Vanish. Radiant. No more. Whirling up. Soul sing in harmony. To the Savior's victory. Projection. At your command. The world is mine to guard. Objective. Maul. Smile. Sparks. Ignite the body damage. Night wings activated. Stars shine tonight. Become the scenery. Beyond lush haze, the rainfall marches. Rises into the landscapes. The water meets the sky. Keeping up, are we? Mist clears. Mirrored by water, tinted in blue. Sentinel protect me. Mover, be my salvation. Together we stand. Purified. I call upon the sentinel. I can spread a minute. Knock some heads around. Don't stand in my way. Flatten. Become the scenery. Clouds fade. Clarity remains.
So, taking a look at each performance, the recently released 3.x teams are pretty close to each other, with Hiyuki squeezing out slightly ahead at 1.4% DPS due to shorter rotations. You can thank Lucilla for that. That being said though, Hiyuki's DPS is a bit deceiving since her first rotation damage has slightly stronger ultimate, as you guys know how her kit works, but overall, all three of these teams are pretty stable. Now, of course, the Zani Peeb comp, they're still hanging in there as a much older comp released even before Kartathea dominated the meta. Now, one of my main findings from playtesting here is that Sushi incorporates a lot of chip damage healing throughout the fight, which allows me to just ignore and tank a lot of enemy mechanics and not worry about dying. This is especially beneficial for certain rotation sequences that you might notice, where animation lock basically forces you to eat some damage. So, closing thoughts and my recommendations on if she's worth pulling. It's pretty clear to me that she's the next generation shorekeeper for negative status. They share HP scaling, energy regen scaling, a domain that buffs, a short rotation, and pretty consistent healing. Now, do keep in mind that negative status has already released quite a handful of comps. We only haven't seen a true Electro Flare / Rage comp in DPS or sub DPS form, so that's very, very likely on the horizon with the new Mengzhou drips. So at least until 4.x, and even possibly through 4.x, Sushi will become the most reliable sustain. As 4.x releases new characters with new show mechanics, Sushi's sustained relevancy will slow down and be similar to what Shorekeeper is now for our current meta. Currently, we do have Mornia and Chisa as our most popular sustains. Sushi's release moves Chisa to primarily stick with yyxl, and so from here forward, Mornia is the go-to for Toon Sustain, and Sushi is the go-to for negative status sustain. Sushi's release moves Chisa to primarily stick with yyxl, and so from here forward, Mornia is the go-to for Toon Sustain, Sushi is the go-to for negative status sustain, and Shorekeeper remains the default FTP choice for generic crit sustain. Based on this info, I recommend you pick up Sushi if you are heavily invested in a 3.x lineup and or don't have 2 sustains yet. 3.x will be the strongest timeline for these units, and in 4.x, negative status teams will likely remain second or third best for a while. That should wrap things up for a complete and detailed guide on Sushi. S0 to S6 will be on my second channel if I do make one, so make sure to follow me over there. Thank you guys for watching. Like and sub for more WuWa content, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.